Hello everyone, let's start the lecture of SQL. With the understanding that everybody has heard the word SQL. Now, what the SQL is nothing but which is a language which is used for communicating with database management system. Now, when we talk about a database management system, what's it? Database management system is a system which is helping you to store and manage the data. Now, before going to that, let's understand there are certain types of database models. Now, basically, there are four structural type of database management system. First, we can say hierarchical database. Second is called a network database. Third is a relational database. And fourth is an object-oriented database. Now, if you observe these four, all three are in black. Third one, relational database, is in red because we are more concerned about the relational databases. Now, before going to the relational database, let's have a small idea about what other databases are. First is called a hierarchical database. Now, what the hierarchical database is? Hierarchical database is a very simple that we can call it as a tree structure. One parent, many child. Simple. We can say one parent, many child is a hierarchical database. In network database, it's just opposite to hierarchical database. Here, one child and many parents. In hierarchical, one parent, many childs. In network database, it is a one child and many parents. An object-oriented database. That is nothing but, I hope everybody has heard the concept of OOPS. That is nothing when we store the data in an object-oriented form. Basically, it is used for storing the program code. Now, the main part, relational databases. What is a relational database? A relational database is nothing but when you are storing the data in a tabular form is called a relational database. Now, for an example, a table itself is called a relation, and when the data is stored in the relational form, or you can say tabular form, it is a relational database. Now, understand here. Simply, let me open one Excel sheet so it will be easy for you to understand. You just hold it. Okay. Okay, so I have opened one Excel sheet for you so you can understand better what the relational database is. So when we talk about relational database is nothing, it's very simple to understand that whenever we store a data in the form of tables considered as a relational database. Now a table itself is called as a relation. Now let's take an example. Let's store information about Amitabh Bachchan and Kareena Kapoor. Just let's we want to store. So we can say that we want to store the information about the actor and actresses. So in a tabular form, how we are going to store? Everybody know that table is a combination of columns and rows. So we have to have certain columns. Now let's say first I want to store the name. So I'll have a one column as a name. I want to store the age, then age. Then I want to store the gender. It's a gender. Let's say that's just for the example, we'll take this much only. And we'll make this as a table. Now, can we say this is our table in which we have a three column name, age, and gender. I want to store the information about Amitabh Bachchan. So I'm storing the name here as Amitabh. Now the age is a separate column, name is a separate column. But in this row where we have stored the Amitabh, this age has to be related to Amitabh. Simple. I cannot say that 23 because this 23 is for assuming for Alia. But we have to store the age of Amitabh as 7. Now you can see that the information in the same row, what we are storing is related to each other. That's why a table itself is called as a relation. Simple here. Now, whenever the data stored in the relational form, that database management system is considered as relational database management system. In short or in abbreviated, we call them as RDBMS. Very simple. Let's go back there. Okay. So I hope it is clear that hierarchical database is nothing but it is a one parent, many child. Network database, one child, many parents. And relational database is data stored in a relational form, that is in a tabular form. Very simple. Object oriented, when we stored a code in an object oriented form, that is called a object oriented database. Now, this much is clear that SQL, what we are going to learn, is used to be communicate with relational database management system. Now, when we talk about SQL, let's have a brief history of the SQL. The initial stands for the structured query language, and the language itself is often referred to as a SQL. Initially, when it was developed, it used to be called as a SQL, and now also many places it is called as a SQL. It is basically created for IBM's one database management system called as System R. After that, there are many companies has come and they have developed the same kind of software. Now, basically, we have a two, which is a major part, that is called MS SQL, Oracle, and DB2. These are the major things where we work with the SQL. Now, SQL is a non-procedural language. This much you have to understand. What is the meaning of the non-procedural? Non-procedural simply means in which we never define any procedure. We just write a query for what we want, not how query has to execute. That how it has to be executed, that will be taken care by the RDBMS. So simply you can say non-procedural is nothing but what rather than how. Very simple. Second thing, SQL is an interpreter-based language. What's the difference between the interpreter and compiler? Interpreter is interpret the command one at a time, whereas compiler compile a set of commands and then it gets executed. That's the difference between the interpreter and compiler. Now, it is an interpreter based, so you cannot combine multiple queries and make a program. You have to execute one query at a time. So simple here. So simply we can say that it is a interpreter based language. Now, benefit of the interpreter is you need not to define how the query has to be get executed. That everything will be taken care by the RDBMS. You have to just pay attention on the logic. Now, when we talk about a database management system, what's a basic concept? What's a database management system? Database management system is a consist of three things. One is called a database. Second is called a language. And third is called a system. System is nothing but a program which help you to manage and store the data. And we'll not go into detail what the database is. Everybody know any information systematically stored considered as a database. What is a database management system? Is a collection of programs which provide management of databases. Simple here. Now, for an example, Oracle, DB2, MS SQL, MySQL, Microsoft Access, all these are nothing but database management system. Now, it is clear that we are dealing with RDBMS, that is a relational database management system. So when we are dealing with the relational database management system, here, if we want to store the data, before storing, structure should be in your hand. So structure should be beforehand. You cannot create a structure on the fly. So for database management system, we have to follow certain steps. So first, before storing the data, you have to design the data. Now, when we are designing the data, we have to follow the three major steps. Step number one, requirement analysis. That what structure should be there, that will be based on information collected from the vendor or for whom you are creating a database design. Now, second thing is called a conceptual database design. Before actual creating a tables, you should be conceptually designing the database. Now, what do you mean by conceptual design? That is, with the help of certain rules, we create that design. And here we take a help of ER model. Everybody know what the ER model is? ER model is nothing but entity relationship model. We'll discuss in a detail. And once we get a conceptual design, then we create that design in a database management system with the help of SQL, and that is called a physical database design. Now, what's the ER model? It's the main important part. So ER model is a entity relationship model. Now, in entity relationship model, what is that? It is a semantic data model that is used for graphical representation of conceptual database design. Now, semantic simply means which has a certain rules. That's it. Simple. Now, in ER model, we have a three construct. First is called an entity. Second, attribute. Third, relationship. Very simple. Now, what the entity is? Any object of the world can be an entity. Anything in the world can be an entity. Now, for more understanding, you can say that anything which can be distinguished, considered as entity. For an example, if I say that student, can we distinguish between the two different students with the help of their names, their roll number, their age, their gender? So that will be an entity. Employees, two employees can be differentiated. They are the entities. Colors is an entity because it can be differentiated. Simple. Then we have a attributes. What the attribute is? Attribute is a characteristics of an entity which define that entity. Now, when we say the student, student is an entity, but a student has a name, roll number, age, gender, all that thing is nothing but an attribute of that student. And third thing is called a relationship. That means one entity related to another entity called as a relationship between the entities. Simple? Now, before going to the entities and all, we have to go to the step number one is called a collecting the information. Very simple. Now, when you want to collect the information, let's have a real scenario in which we're going to collect the information. That will be very simple. So whenever you are getting some information from your requirements then you have to find an entity from them. All of us know what an entity is. Entity is nothing but anything which can be distinguished, considered as an entity. Very simple. Now, first information I'm providing you is I have a two shops. Now here I said that I have two shops. Shop can be an entity, plus it is written that I have a two shops. So when I'm having a two shops, that means one shop can be distinguished by another shop. So from this information, we can write a name of an entity called as shops. Second, one shop is selling electronic goods. Very simple here. Now, when we say electronic goods, simply, can we say that shop is already collected here? So one entity should not be defined again. So if it is there, no need to take it again. But this giving the some other information. That is, one shop is selling the electronic goods. Now selling, a sale. Can we say two sale can distinguish from each other? Yes, we can say that. So sale will be the one entity. Second is a goods, not electronic goods. Goods. Electronic is a property of the goods, and property or characteristics is considered as attributes. Simple here. Now, so here we got a two entities, product and sales. Then next information we are getting is another shop is selling the clothes. So can we say cloth is a garment, selling a sale we have already taken, shop is already taken, and cloth is nothing but a product. So in this, we are not getting additional entity, but we got an additional attribute for product. Simple here. Customer can inquire at any shop. Very simple. What could be the entity here? Here the entity will be customer. Account department is common for both the shop. So here, account is a characteristics of department. So we have a department as additional entity. Salesman is paid incentive according to his sale. That means in the shop, we have a salesman and other employees as well. And salesman is nothing but a part of the employee. Salesman could be the post of this employee here. So we can take employee as a entity. Then we have next information. There we say that dealers are qualified before purchase. Simple here. What could be an entity here? Now, looking at this, you might be understood here also, dealer and purchase. When sell is an entity, purchase could also be an entity. So we got it here, dealers and purchase. Each shop goods kept in a different warehouses. So what could be the entity here? Warehouses. Customer who visit both the shop is a premium customer. So simply, we have additional information about a customer. That premium customer. Simple. So when premium, we are saying it's a characteristics of a customer. And customer we have already taken. So here we did not have any additional entity. 10th, we take care of employees' dependents also. Simple. So what could be an entity here? Employees we have already taken, so it will be the dependents. So finally we got certain entities. This is how we find the entities. Now once we find an entity, we have to follow the ER model. So in the ER model, entity is shown with the help of rectangle. For an example, shop, employees, dependents, all these are nothing but a entities. Now in the entities also, we have two different types of entities. One is called as independent entity, called as a strong entity, and dependent entity is called as a weak entity. How to determine whether the entity is a strong or a weak? So simply, any entity which is independent considered as a strong entity, and any entity which depends on another entity considered as weak entity. Weak entity shown with the help of double rectangle. Simple here. So employees strong, dependents weak. Because if the employees is there, then the dependents will be there. But if dependent is not there, still the employee can be there. Simple here. So this is the two types of entities we do have. Then we have a entity instance. Now what is an entity instance? The word is different, but it is very simple. Look at this. Can we call this as actors as an entity? And this Amitabh will be an entity instance. Simple here. Actors is an entity, but Amitabh is an entity instance. It can be multiple. I can say the Alia, another one, Varun, another one. So we have a 1, 2, 3 instance of actors. So this is called a entity instance. Then we have a term called as entity set. Collection of all the instance is called as a entity set. Okay, just 1 second. Entity set is clear, entity type is clear, and entity instance is also clear. Now, next thing is called as a attributes. So what is an attribute? Attributes are characteristics of the entity, and it has a name and domain. Simple. Now for this employees, can we say that there will be certain characteristics and attributes are shown with the help of oval. Attributes are shown with the help of oval or ellipse. For an example, employee ID, name, address, and salary. Simple. So here, this employee ID is a characteristics of employees. Now this employee ID is a name of attribute, and it has a domain. Domain means what? Employee ID should contain specific data, and that specific data is nothing but some numbers, or could be the combination of alphabet and numbers. Name should contain only the names, that is a character, and that is called as a domain. Now in the attribute also, there are different types of attributes. What do you mean by the different types of attributes? Simple, you can say that all the attributes based on their characteristics, they are bifurcated in certain types. First is called as a simple, second composite, multi-valued, or derived. Simple means what? When attribute has a single or a simple value is a simple attribute. When any attribute has a combination of more than one value, then it is called a composite. Then we have a derived. When the value of one attribute comes from another attribute considered as a derived. When value of one attribute comes from another attribute considered as a derived. Now, what could be the simple here? Simple is always shown in a single oval. Composite. What could be the composite here? Can we say the name? Name is a combination of first name and the last name, or we can say combination of first name, middle name, and last name. So simply you can say here first name, last name. Simple. So whichever is a composite, they are shown with the further divided if it is required by that particular project. Simple. Second is called a multi-value. When single instance for a single attribute can have a multiple values, could be called as a multi-value. For example, phone number. A one person can have a multiple phone numbers, so that phone number will be the multi-value. Here we can say address. Now, simply we can say here that one person can have a more than one addresses. One could be the temporary, one could be the permanent. Simple here. And multi-valued are shown with the help of double ellipse. Stored and derived. We can take an example of date of birth and age. Date of birth we have to provide, but age value can derive from the date of birth. So age will be derived from. And derived is shown with the help of dotted ovals. Simple here. So simple, composite, multi-valued, and derived. Now, important part is called the keys. What do you mean by the keys? Key is very important for uniquely identifying an entity in an entire set. Simple, I'll repeat it once again. Key is very important for uniquely identifying the entity in the entity set. Now let's take an example here. Here, let's say I'm creating another entity. Okay, so let's say we create a customer for the bank. So what will they have? They will have a first name, middle name, age, gender. There could be many more information could be stored, but for example purpose, we are taking a little bit low here. Then we can say Aadhaar card number. Now in this, is it possible that we can have one person as first customer called as Ramesh? Is it possible? Can we have another customer also which will have the same name Ramesh? Yes, it's quite possible. Middle name, let's say the T. Is it possible that T will be here as well? Yes. He is of age 25. Is it possible he could be of 25? Quite possible. Gender, obviously the male. But Aadhaar card will be the same for both the Ramesh, or it will be the different? it will be the default. So here it will be, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, can we identify a specific Ramesh with the name? No. With their middle name? No. With the age? No. But with the help of Aadhaar card, can we specify a specific Ramesh? Obviously, yes. Simple here. So this Aadhaar card will be considered as key. So this is a key. So simple, a key is any attribute or a set of attribute whose value can uniquely identify an entity in the entity set is considered as key. Simple here. Now in the key, there are two types of keys. One is called a natural. And second is called as a surrogate. What's the difference between the natural and surrogate? Now this Aadhaar card number is provided by the Ramesh. So given information can give us a key. So this is a natural. But I'm sure that you must be knowing that in the bank, whatever you provide, but they give you the one thing called as account number. Now he has been given as a 301. He has been given as a 4401. Now see the difference between this and this. Can we identify the person with account number also? Yes. So this is also the key. But out of these two, one is a natural and one is a surrogate. Aadhaar card is considered as a natural and account number is considered as a surrogate. Simple. Now, why is that so? This Aadhaar card number is provided by the Ramesh to the bank. So it is a part of actual information. But this account number is given by the bank to the Ramesh. They have added extra attribute for acting as a key. So this will be the surrogate key. This will be the natural key. Very simple here. Natural and surrogate. I hope this much concept is clear. Let's move ahead. Now in the keys, there are different types of keys. One is called a super key. Second, candidate key, primary key, alternate key, and secondary key. Alternate or secondary is one is the same. And finally, we have a foreign. Now, first is a super key. What the super key is? Super key is a set of attributes whose value can uniquely identify an entity in the entity set. I will say, sir, definition of the key and definition of super keys one is the same. But super key means any set who can give you unique identification considered as a super key. For an example, in this, if somebody provide account number and first name, can we uniquely identify the person? Yes. So here, combination of account number and first name is a key. And this will be called a super key. If somebody provide only account number, still I can uniquely identify. So this is also the super key. So how many super key is possible in the table or an entity? Multiples. Any combination with the account number can give us unique identification. So that will be considered as super key. Simple here. Now, any combination with Aadhaar card also can give us a super key. So there will be a multiple keys in an entity called as a super key. So now here, when we talk about employees, how many super keys are possible? Multiple. Employee ID is a super key. Employee ID name is a super key. Employee ID name address will be the super key. So can we say this much super key will be there? Yes. But the problem is when you physically design a database, RDBMS allow only one unique identifier. But super key is always a multiple. Hence super key is multiple. We move one step ahead and look for the candidate key. Definition wise, both are the same. Candidate key is a set of one or more attributes whose value can uniquely identify an entity in the entity set. And any attribute in the candidate key cannot be omitted without destroying the uniqueness property of candidate key. Now, definition is a little bit difficult to understand. So understand here. Now, out of these two, both are the super keys. It could be n number, but simply candidate key says that if you remove any of the attribute from a set of the key and still you get a uniqueness property, then that is not a candidate key. Simple. So simply you can say that from account number and phone number, if I remove the account number and first name, if I remove the first name, still I am getting a uniqueness. So this is not a candidate key. Here we have only account number, so we cannot remove anything. So this will be considered as a candidate key. Same way, I could have Aadhaar card also. यहाँ से भी हम कुछ नहीं निकाल सकते. So this also will be considered as candidate key. So simple here. In simple words, you can say that minimal super key is a candidate key. जिस super key में सबसे कम attribute है, that will be considered as a candidate key. Very simple here. Let's move ahead. So now here, employee ID name is not a candidate. Okay, we have taken an actual example, so we'll not go for this. Now, candidate key also can be the multiple because a minimal super key is a candidate key. So in that case, minimal can be the multiple. So again, we have the same problem, that is candidate key is also can be multiple. But the problem is RDBMS allow only one unique identification. So simple here. So in that case, we move one step ahead and look for the primary key. Now definition wise, primary key is also the same. That which is uniquely identifying. Now what is a primary? Out of the candidate key, whichever key is chosen as physically unique identification in database management system considered as a primary key. So how much primary key is possible? Only one. Simple. Next is secondary. What is secondary key? Secondary key is nothing but if we have a multiple candidate key, then one can be chosen as primary key and remaining will be considered as secondary or alternate keys. Now here we take an example. Driving ID, license number. Both are candidate. One can be chosen as primary. If this driving ID is chosen as primary key, then license number will be considered as secondary. Simple here. So the conclusion is super key is a broadest unique identifier, candidate key is a subset of super key, and primary key is a key which is chosen by database designer from candidate key. So simple. So simply in this first lecture we have talked up till the keys. Then in the next lecture we'll talk about the further. Simple here. All right.